Nepalese Diaspora को कार्यक्रम जोग संजोगमा यहाँहरूलाई हार्दिक स्वागत छ। म सतीश चपागाई। हामीले विभिन्न समयमा विभिन्न व्यक्तित्वहरूसँग छलफलको कार्यक्रम गर्ने गर्छौं। यसै सन्दर्भमा म दुईजना अतिथि लिएर उपस्थित भएको छु। एकजना हुनुहुन्छ देवाङ शाह, उहाँ चाहिँ नि एसियन अमेरिकन पेसिफिक आइल्यान्डर को मेरील्यान्डको अध्यक्ष हुनुहुन्छ र मसँग अर्को एकजना अतिथि हुनुहुन्छ डाक्टर श्याम कार्की। यहाँहरु सबैले चिन्नु भएको छ। नेपाली कम्युनिटी यो मेरील्यान्डमा विशेष उहाँको सामाजिक क्षेत्रमा विशेष योगदान रहेको छ। उहाँहरु दुवैजनालाई म स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। सर्वप्रथम I would like to welcome you both here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be here, and I thank you very much for letting me come and speak with you today.
Devang Shah, did I spell right?
Yes, you did. Yes.
It is?
Yes.
It is? You are chair of AAPI, right?
Yes.
So what is this?
Okay. So actually what I am the chair of is the Maryland Democratic Party and the Maryland Democratic Party Asian American Leadership Council. So what the Maryland Democratic Party has done is created various councils to reach into the various communities within the Democratic Party. So for example, there's a Latino Leadership Council. There is a council for LGBTQ. There's a women's council. So in order to get deeply into these communities, we have created, or they have created, these leadership councils, and I chair the Leadership Council for the Asian American Pacific Islander community for the state of Maryland. Now the AAPI community is primarily in, number one, in Montgomery County is the highest number of people, then Howard County. Howard County actually has a higher percentage of AAPIs in Montgomery County.
AAPI in Maryland or AAPI
in Maryland, all of Maryland.
Okay.
Baltimore County now has a large amount of numbers of people, especially with the Nepalese community is very heavily concentrated in this area. And also we have some numbers in Prince George's County also. Okay, and Frederick County is growing very rapidly with Asian American Pacific Islanders.
Before going to AAPI, all questions, I just want, brief introduction about you.
Okay.
To my audience.
Sure. I was born and raised in Maryland. So I've been here. My father came from India in 1961 to the United States and settled in Washington, D.C. To obtain his PhD in chemistry. I think when he came to the United States, there was less than 10,000 Indians in the United States because of the Chinese Exclusion Act and the Immigration Act of 1924, which didn't allow Asian Americans to come to the country. The floodgates really opened up in 1964 or 1965 with the Immigration and Nationality Act, which allowed a large number of Asian Americans to immigrate to the United States, and that's what we had. So what's kind of ironic is I have become an immigration attorney. I represent primarily technology companies who are hiring these H-1B visas, the software engineers, and that's what I did. Always been interested in public service, in policy and politics. When I was in college, I interned and worked on a campaign for Michael Dukakis for president. Very recently, I helped, served as a trustee for Martin O'Malley for president. I was on the National Finance Committee for Hillary Clinton for president. I also served on the South Asian Commission for Governor O'Malley when he was governor of Maryland. So that's somewhat what I do. I also very involved in the general community, which I think is very important. I am on the board and will be the chair next year of an organization called Interfaith Works. It's an organization with...
It's the social work, right?
Social work,
politics.
But I think it goes hand in hand. I see many people in the Nepalese community doing the same thing. We have 116 employees, 15,000 volunteers, and we help people, the most vulnerable people in our population, with respect to homelessness, meals, providing clothing for them, providing vocational training.
What is that organization?
Called Interfaith Works, based in Montgomery County. So I participate in many other organizations. One Asian American organization I participate in is I'm on the board of AICS, Asians Intra-Community Service. One of the very important roles that we play, or one of the things that we try to alleviate, is mental health awareness among Asian Americans. That's a huge problem in our community, and people don't understand the gravity. And I think whether it's Indian American, Chinese American, Nepalese American, we all have the same issue that if somebody is having some mental problems, the word I think in our community is almost he's crazy, or we don't come forward with those mental health problems, okay? So what we do is try to bring together and bring awareness to mental health. Let me share some statistics. The highest incidence of suicide of any demographic group in the United States is Asian American females between the ages of 16 and 25. But less than 1% of all insurance dollars are used by Asian Americans for mental health. So if you break your arm, you go to the doctor. If you have your child may have some issues or problems, or your parents, we don't take them for mental health counseling because we see that as a weakness. So how does this play together? So what we do with AICS is we also ask the county government, Montgomery County, for grant money. So having that political participation brings in and couples it with our social participation in what we need to do within our community so we can get the resources that we have. It's wonderful that we have delegates like Harry Bandari, who's been elected. He's going to understand this issue, but he's one of many. So we also have to go to the broader community and talk to our county council members and delegates and tell them about the problems in our community, and then we can, by having political participation, we can get the help we need for our community. So that's how it all kind of plays together.
Hello, के हजुरले हाम्रो यस युट्युब च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गर्नुभयो? यदि सब्स्क्राइब गर्नुभएको छैन भने हामीलाई सब्स्क्राइब गर्नुहोला र साइडमा रहेको यस बेल आइकनलाई क्लिक गरिदिनु होला जबकि हामी यस्तै नयाँ अनि नौलो विषयवस्तु लिएर आउँदा हजुरकोमा नोटिफिकेसन पुगोस्.
Meantime, I just want to go, Mr. Karki. So, how we can mingle him or in Nepali community together?
The reason is, all the Asians have almost the same problem. We share the same. Actually, we have more because we have much more recent people who are starting to face them just now. So, from that perspective, what they have already faced, what they have already learned, what they put in practice, what worked, what didn't work, we can by networking learn. At the same time, by working together in a public organization, gives us much more clout to use the public funding, where the funding comes, because in the beginning you don't know where the fund is there, how to get it. So by combining our resources, we're utilizing their experience to solve the same problems they had faced before, because it's the same problem we have faced, like he was talking about suicide.
Because we have the same problem in Nepali community, right?
Yeah, suicide and then the...
Do we have any data?
Yeah, I actually, I lecture on suicide prevention.
Oh, you do?
My specialization in psychiatry, and I used to work at Adventist Psychiatric Hospital.
Okay.
I was the director of pharmacy there for 3 years. So, and my daughter also is expert. She's also just like me, psychiatric medical specialized. We give lecture at that one. And like he said, it's a stigma. Mental health is problem is a stigma. So people take it like it's a dishonor to say someone in my family is going through this one.
Right.
So they try to hide it, and when you try to hide it, in depression, what happens when you try to hide it? The next stage is suicide. And
Until the suicide.
Because personally knowing I have prevented so many people's lives because I knew, but some people I didn't know before, and then I say, only if I had known, I could have done something. So pulling these resources and working with someone who have gone through the same thing, act on the same one, is a great advantage for us. We got to learn, we got to work together, and that's a wonderful thing to have. And it's really wonderful to have Devang here, and he's going to help us work together. I think it's a great privilege. I really thank you, Devang, very much.
This is only one example we are just talking about.
Yes.
The main cause is that we are talking about this is we can do a lot. We have a lot of this kind of problems in our community, right? In Asian, American, Pacific Islander community, right?
That's correct. So one of the reasons...
what are other problems that we can fix, that we can work?
We'll work together. There's many issues. One, of course, is immigration on a national level, right? So we have the issue with TPS with Nepalese. It's in the courts right now. We have a president that really doesn't want us or other brown immigrants or Asian Americans in this country to a certain extent, okay? So that's where we can work on the national level. And really what we need to do, I mean, some of the issues with immigration is he proposed a recent immigration bill which would have not allowed you to sponsor your brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Okay, he would have not allowed you to bring your mother or father from Nepal or other countries to the United States, even if you're a U.S. citizen. And I think all of us that were here as immigrants want to bring their parents over if possible.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are some of the issues that all Asian Americans need to work together in. Now, why do we call ourselves Asian Americans? Why do we need to work together? Because
Yes, why we need this AAPI?
okay, individually the Nepalese community is small. Individually, the Indian American community even bigger than the Nepalese, but still, as a percentage of the population, we're very small. So what elected officials look for really is votes. And they look for how much does this affect that community, okay? If you were just the Nepalese community, we were just the Indian American community, you had a Chinese community, our numbers wouldn't be strong enough, okay? Together, with common interest, common purpose, we have large enough numbers where we have to take they have to take notice. The elections are won on the margins many times. They're very close elections. Hillary Clinton lost Michigan by 10,000 votes. The Democrats lost Pennsylvania by a margin that was the smallest margin since 1840, okay? If more Asian Americans had come out to vote, we might have been able to flip Pennsylvania, okay? So they look at us now and say, you know, this demographic group is large enough that they could change the election. And the elections are won many times, again, on the margins. So that's why we have the API community. But it's very important also to drill into each of the separate ethnic communities because your issues may be somewhat different. And the term AAPI may not resonate with the Nepalese community because in Nepal, nobody thinks of themselves as Asian American, right? Or Asian. They think of themselves as Nepal. And they come here, so we have to, I guess, educate them onto why we are in a coalition with Indian Americans. And I think with South Asians, we have a certain affinity, culture is very similar. But with the East Asians, it may be a little bit different, but we have to really educate them as to, even though they have a different religion and they eat different foods, etc., and a different culture somewhat, why we need to have this coalition for our own common interest.
So far, what you achieve AAPI as a AAPI?
So what we've
For
achieved,
this community, all this community.
what we've achieved, I think, is pretty dramatic in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years. We had a record number of Asian Americans that have run for office. We have the first Nepalese American that has not only run for office, but has won office, not only in this first one in the state of Maryland, but first one in the country. Now,
yes.
our true achievement would be this, that he's not the first, and we have others that run after him throughout this state. And at some point, people stop referring to this person as, oh, a Nepalese American won. That's amazing, right? When it becomes commonplace, we've truly achieved what we want to achieve. Okay, so that's number one in terms of achievement. And number two, we've done a significant amount also in voter outreach over the past several election cycles, which is very important. But we still have a long way to go. Only 30% of Asian Americans are actually going out to vote. Okay, so we have a very low turnout. But what that gives us is a terrific opportunity because if we can convert another 30%, we can really swing some of these elections. And that's why I've engaged Dr. Karki and others to bring out within your Nepalese community to get people to register to vote. I think it's a several-step process. Let me back up. Number one, if members of your community are eligible to naturalize and become a citizen, we need to get them to naturalize. Once they naturalize, we need them to register to vote and register to vote as Democrats. Then the third hardest thing is, okay, we've registered them to vote, but they've actually got to go out and vote, okay? And
so why?
Why?
But the question is why? Why we have to register as a Democrat? Why we have to go to vote?
Well, are you, okay, so
That's a basic question. Why?
Okay, why? Because we talked about having services for our community, okay? Elected officials will not look at us unless we vote and we're voters. If we're not voters, if we're just in the community, we're invisible, okay?
So the vote is voice.
Vote is
basically.
the voice for people. And I will tell you, this country, our nation and our society now is a data-driven society. The data is at our fingertips. They will know how many Asian Americans came out to vote. They will know by precinct. They will know by each and every district, right? And they will play the numbers and say, wait a minute, this community can help me win. If this community can help them win, guess what? You're going to get a voice at the table. You're going to get a seat at the table. And that's what we really want, is a seat at the table. Now, maybe the seat at the table is a Korean American. Maybe it's a Indian American. But because we are in this AAPI coalition, the Nepalese Americans have a seat at the table when there's an Indian American there. We have a seat at the table in the delegation when Harry Bandari's in the State House. And also, what happens when we become politically active is we will get our children involved in that process. And many of our children will go on to hold not always political office. It doesn't have to be governor. It doesn't have to be delegate. It can be at the school board level. It could be other public service positions that they can serve on commissions. So you can be a doctor, but serve on volunteer commissions. All of these counties have many, many commissions for transportation. So our community has tremendous expertise. We're very smart, but we can give back so much more, and we don't have to give up our profession. Again, my position is a volunteer position, and we can give back our thoughts and our wisdom.
That is why we have to involve in politics.
We have to involve in politics and public service. I want to make the term, it's more public service than politics.
Do you want to add something?
No, I think he's right. I think what it is in a democratic system, unless you go and vote and participate openly in the public, you are lost. You get to say that.
You are nowhere.
Yeah, you got to be active. That's the only way you get active is by showing your vote. And right now in Maryland, there are 11 AAPI members there, and the whole country there are 20 in the Congress. Compared to before, it's much higher. But still then, we can do a lot to make it bigger. And from the other side, I keep on telling that, look, it's not only we are asking for us, it's for the whole country as a whole. You know, in 1 in 4 whole population is Chinese. 1 in 5 is an Indian. And the world's second largest economy is Chinese, third is Indian. So this country now has to do business. This country has to do big trade. So for this country to grow, it has to establish relationship much more, because it's no longer luxury. It's a luxury to only to look towards Europe now. You've got to look toward Asia for the economic development of this country. And we, as coming from there, we know the culture, so we can act as very good intermediaries to promote the financial conditions of this country. So from that perspective, by being active in the public, we are not only helping the people from Asia and but we are helping the whole country as such, because without that market, this country cannot just go on progressing now. So it's very important for us to educate that aspect to other people, saying, look, we are here for the whole country. We are not only talking ourselves, but we are for the whole country. There's a lot of education to do that also.
For me,
Yeah.
I'm just a first generation immigrant, right? And I have to struggle for my family, eating butter and bread. So why I have to go with the politics?
So,
The simple man, why?
why the simple bit? Again, I don't think we're asking much, okay?
Yes.
But it's really, you're doing it for your children, okay? A better life for your children. If we don't plant the seeds, you know, they're not going to sit in the shade, okay, in the future, okay? So I think that's what you're, number one, you're doing it for your children, your children's future. What? You're planting the seeds for the future, and you're, and Asian American community, it's really a matter of destiny and demographics. We are the fastest growing community in the United States, okay? And we must chart our own future. Now, many people struggle. Many people are, worried more about their daily lives, about ensuring that there's food on the table, that they can pay the rent, okay? So, once again, you may not need to do this 20 hours a week, 10 hours a week, but I guess we're taking simple steps. One, if you're eligible, naturalize, okay? Number two, you want to register to vote. That's filling out a form. Number three, go out and vote. Now, they have early voting. Generally 14 or 15 days before an election, you can vote and go to many centers. Now, one of the things we can do as a community and say, well, why don't we have an early voting center in this location right here where the Nepalese come? So that's where Dr. Karki and others can work with the community or the election board and say, hey, let's make this a voting site, or let's have voting sites that are convenient for the Nepalese community here in this town, okay? So now if you have extra time, sure, you can go make phone call to other Nepalese to go out and vote. You can go knock on doors for the Nepalese community and say, hey, I want you to go out and vote if you've forgotten. And you can take those additional steps. One other thing that can be done, your children that may be in high school or college can volunteer their time. Those in high school get what's called community service learning hours. And it actually looks very good for colleges to show that you're involved in public service when you apply for college admission for your kids.
You said you've been working like 20 years, around 20 years in this field, right?
Yeah. I've been concentrating much more in this field about the last 8 years or so, yes.
What you feel it from inside, how you entertain it?
Well, I feel like, we have to make a difference for our community, right? That's what it's about. And
you think
do this. I do it for three reasons, I tell people. And it's PBS, and it's not the television show, it's the names of my kids, Priya, Bianca, and Sabrina, okay? I want to make a better life for them. And whatever little I can do, I think it helps. And collectively getting other people involved. Yeah, I think at the core of our existence really is to plant the seeds for our future generation. So and I think all of us as Asian Americans came here, if you did, to get an education potentially and to make a better life, not only for yourself, but for your kids. So being involved in the community, being involved politically will help create a better life for your children.
Are you satisfied so far?
Well, I'm satisfied so far, but we have a president of the White House that I'm not satisfied with, okay? And so it looks as if we've gone backwards, and we could go even further back if Donald Trump were to win. What most people don't see with the presidency is he gets to select the judges. And even with Larry Hogan, as a governor, he gets to select the judges. Now, when you get to select the judges, most people don't know, maybe know the highest level, the Supreme Court. But President Trump is having judges now serving that are very conservative at the district and the circuit court level that will really affect our lives for the next 20 to 30 years, which is a generation. Another 4 years, and we could see many of the laws that have allowed us to grow in this country, to flourish in the country, really start to hold us back.
So how can we work to hold him back?
Well, one of the things that we did,
because election is
elections coming up in 2020. So we have battleground states, right? So for those that don't understand, there's an electoral college, and every state has a certain number of votes. And we know, for example, Maryland's going to be voting Democrat, and all the electoral votes for Maryland is going to go in the Democratic column. But Pennsylvania is what's called a swing state. It could go for, we had 0.74% margin of victory for Donald Trump. So what we can do in Maryland is we can make phone calls to Asian Americans in Pennsylvania and urge them to go vote or register. And we can also travel to Pennsylvania and help the AAPIs in Pennsylvania, especially in the Philadelphia area, and go knocking on doors and tell people to vote. I think
for Democrat.
Yeah. Now, there's a saying that politics is a contact sport, and unless we contact these individuals several times.
Several times.
They may not go out and vote. Now, what we've seen also, which was very fascinating in the last congressional election, is that Sri Kulkarni, who ran for Congress in the Houston area, he really drilled down and had certain communities call their own community. And it got to the level that if you were a Gujarati Muslim, you were calling Gujarati Muslims. If you're a Gujarati Hindu, you'd call Gujarati Hindus. So a phone call to the Nepalese community, a community member from you, goes much further than it would from me. Would go much further than if it was from a Anglo person or an African American, right? And you may even talk in the language. So the last gubernatorial election, what we did is we received ethnic-centric voting lists with phone numbers, right? And we split them up so they could split up with Indians, but we knew within Indians themselves whether there were Gujaratis, whether there were Bengalis, etc. And then we split the list accordingly, and we started making the phone calls. And we brought in a lot of our parents, and they actually loved it because many of them lonely, they got to come in, they had this large group of people, they could call their own language. And what was amazing also is that if they didn't know the person, many times they did, there was always just 1 degree of separation. And once they start having that conversation and you make that connection, or you talk about, oh, where are you from in India? Where are you from in Nepal? Yes, the connection is made. When did you come here? And then they're gonna, it's lifetime, but they're gonna do what you want them to do potentially, right?
One question for both of you.
Continuing the same theme with a very tiny number makes a difference. Like in Pennsylvania, right in Pittsburgh, there are 20,000 Bhutanis, Nepali speaking.
Yeah.
Ohio is a swing state. In Columbus, there are 30,000 Bhutanis. Now, if you can just mobilize these people, it makes a big difference.
Yes. And what's
So
also
my question, maybe that's done. Why we immigrant people should affiliated with Democrat?
well, I think
Both of you.
well, that's an easy question.
There
Now,
is,
if you see,
there is,
if
Republican
you see our,
too.
if you see our current president Donald Trump, he's not very friendly to the immigrant community. So I think that's very easy. But what you see for the Democratic Party, even prior to Trump, is really to build a bigger tent, to bring in people of all nationalities, of all ethnic groups, of all, whether your sexual orientation is lesbian, gay, straight. It's to bring in everybody, okay? And to be the party of everyone, okay? And really be the party of we, not the party of I. When you look at the Republicans, they're the party of I. Democrats are the party of we. What can we do better as a society? How can I help my fellow person? How can we make things more open and provide opportunities for all? When you look at the Republicans, oftentimes it's not providing opportunities for all, it's providing barriers for others so they may rise. And oftentimes it was white males that
Same thing, very economic fundamental. The Republicans believe in trickle-down theory. That means give a lot of money to the very rich people, then they spend, they'll come down. Whereby the Democratic Party looks, but who is the poorest one? How can we take care of the most poorest section, helpless section? How can we help them life? So from that perspective, all the big programs, social security, healthcare, everything, are usually championed by the Democrats because this is an interest of the people otherwise who cannot afford. And third thing is they're very open. And you have an example like here, we are building a big temple. They took us to the court. We spent almost 100,000. And then in that case, what happened is, if it was a Democratic administration, I don't think they would have even gone to court. The number of people who were interested is they knew that they can harass us by taking us there, and they took us there. And third thing is about the judges. There are 3 judges. The first time they gave us approval with certain conditions. The second time when we went there, one judge changed. The new judge was a very young one. And in the Maryland, what happens is when the judges are discussing, it's an open discussion. You can go and attend that one, so it's not done in private. So we're there watching. This young man made a big difference. The other one, they were putting conditions. This is their building. You cannot tell them what to do inside. He was really for openness person, and that means his ideas were much more liberal. And he was, so from that perspective, who are the judges you appoint? What kind of openness they have? Sets the direction and the tone of the whole social life. Or like he said, I can remember at one time, people who will stare me at the traffic light now say obscenities sometimes at me now. It's because of the Trump, people have been emboldened like that one. So it makes a big difference which kind of administration do you have, what's the philosophy they have, how open they are. It makes a big difference in the whole life.
So that we immigrants should affiliated with Democrat.
Yeah, mostly yes. Usually
Yes.
you find that even in the immigrant community, people who are prosperous, once they become higher one, they tend to go to the Republican side. The reason is usually the Republican side are those who try to pay less tax, all these, who really benefits the rich. So if you go to the immigrant community, you will find that the rich people usually go to the Republican, the other people go to the much more to the Democratic, because that's what they're championing. You go to the party which champions your cause. That's what you do.
And there's been a sizable shift in the Republican Party over especially the last several years, but even from the 80s. So back in the 80s, I think the Asian Americans were pretty much split during the time of Ronald Reagan between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and much of it was because of economic factors. But the Republican Party at that time was not anti-immigrant. Okay, in 1986, Ronald Reagan passed a comprehensive immigration bill at that time. Even George Bush II tried to pass some comprehensive immigration bills. But over time, has the Republican Party has become more nationalistic, more anti-immigrant. There's been a huge shift from Asian Americans being in the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And I think in the last political cycle for president, for Indian Americans, I know it was like 75 to 80% of most, even South Asians overall, voted for Hillary Clinton. So it's overwhelmingly in the Democratic, camp. But one thing is also that, with having the chair of the Democratic Party, Tom Perez, and the chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, Amaya Rockamore Cummings, they both really understand that even though we have 75 to 80% in our camp, we need to get more Asian Americans out to vote, and we can't take them for granted. And I really admire both Tom and Maya for that, because they know that elected officials can't just come to our communities in September and October before the November election and start asking for votes. They have to come out early, years before, and cultivate that relationship.
So what is the coming plan for
So we do many events. There is, for example, an event coming up this coming Saturday in Howard County, where an Indian American organization is doing a Pani Puri event. They expect about 5,000 people, and we're going to do voter registration.
5,000 people.
5,000 people, because we have 3 Asian Americans running for president of the United States, and I don't
coming
for 2020 for the Democratic nomination. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard, Kamala Harris, and then we have Andrew Yang. Okay, 3 people. Okay, I don't think I've ever thought that in my lifetime we would have 3 prominent Asian Americans running for president
of
the United States. Okay, so one of those individuals, Andrew Yang, who's receiving a lot of press coverage. He was recently featured in Time Magazine, the New York Times, the Washington Post. He's drawing crowds of 3,000, 4,000 people. Now he's got some policy positions that are attracting a lot of people. One is a universal basic income of $1,000 for every individual, because of these shifts that we're having in our society with employment and underemployment or unemployment due to technological progress. We may not be able to anymore employ those people in high-paying positions. So he's recommending a universal basic income of $1,000. On June 18th, in the evening at New Fortune Restaurant in Gaithersburg, Maryland, we're having an event with Andrew Yang, sponsored by the Asian American Leadership Council. Now, we're not endorsing Andrew Yang, but he's our keynote speaker. Okay, and what we're doing for that event is any funds that are raised for the Asian American Leadership Council, okay, those funds will be used in the future for Asian American outreach, for Asian American press such as yourself, Asian American, maybe we hire an Asian American volunteer intern to go out to the community for the next gubernatorial election. So where that money is going to stay within the community to further advance our interest in the community with respect to voter outreach and voter registration. Okay.
These are the plans.
Those are the short-term plans. I recently met with a group of AAPIs in Frederick County, and their concerns were very different than the AAPIs in Montgomery County. And when I spoke to them, I said, well, what is your concerns? Their concerns, number one, was they're going through a school redistricting in October, and they moved to a particular location, and now they don't want to get redistricted. Education, of course, is really the number one concern for most AAPIs. Number two, cultural competency of their county employees and cultural awareness. With a large AAPI population, their county employees are still predominantly white, and they don't understand the new immigrant situation. So they want to, number three, they face a lot of bullying in schools. Okay, East Asians for thinking everyone is a Muslim. I mean, East Asian because of their look and their eyes. South Asians because everyone's a Muslim. And the fourth, they're scared if they get active politically. The KKK is still very active in Frederick. Okay, so what we want to do there is those are very different needs in the APIs of Montgomery County, is have listen and learn sessions with their county executive or the county council members. And that could be the full AAPI community because everyone, as we stated earlier, has these common problems, okay? Now, if it was just the Nepalese community and there's one or two people, we wouldn't be able to have these meetings, right? So we want to have these meetings, and then we have action plans, right? And also to get our community members involved in positions of leadership. So when there's an opening and they say, oh, you know what, there's an opening for this position, we can submit resumes and say there are members in our community that are interested, okay? And we would all reach out to our community and say, hey, this position's opening. Why don't you provide me some resumes or apply for this position? And what we hear many times from elected officials that, oh, we didn't receive any resumes from your community. Well, unfortunately, our community wasn't aware of those positions of leadership. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem that we're going to solve through this involvement.
How can a person be a member of AAPI? What is the first step?
Well, everyone's an AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander in some sense, right? So we want you to get involved with your local council. So if you're living here in Baltimore County, you're going to be contacting Dr. Karki.
Dr.
Right?
Karki.
Yeah, Karki. And then he will be knowing what to do. Let's have a voter outreach program. He'll be sitting down with you, and he's going to create his own sub-council of Nepalese and other Asian Americans within Baltimore County to have these events. So the event that we're doing next week is a Howard County event that Devang Shah, who's on the Central Committee, is helping to coordinate in Howard County, and we're going to be doing voter registration there.
Dr. Karki, are you working on them
Yeah,
with Nepali community?
To the June 18 event, I already have 20 people ready to go. I'm trying to go from, I was trying to go from 10 to 20, now I'm trying to go from 20 to 30.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful.
So I'm concerned about the reason is if I can take them there, they'll see what it is. Me telling them is one thing. When they go there, it's almost like a validation of what I tell them. My experience in the last couple of years tells me that anytime you convince people voice in their interests, they go that way. And I'm very convinced that it will be that way.
This is a very organized structure. So the way it works is we have the National Democratic Party, okay? And within the National Democratic Party, they have councils, and one is an Asian American API council, and they call it a caucus. And that's run by Bell Leong Hong, who serves as the chair, who actually lives in Maryland, which we're very lucky for. And then we have states within the United States, not every state, that have a council for AAPIs. So then I'm at the state level, and then you have Dr. Karki now at the county level, okay? And so it's very important that we understand what's happening at the local level, and then it goes up to the state level. Many issues are local issues, some are state issues, and some are national issues, right? So even at the state level, national level, we have phone calls and conference calls and meetings between the leaders of various states, and we share best practices, and we hear wonderful stories of what's happening throughout the country. And we had a special election in Arizona last year. We had an Indian American running for Congress, and AAPI's phone banked into Arizona. Okay, we had a gubernatorial election in Georgia, and the demographics in Georgia, especially around Atlanta, have changed significantly, where there's a large AAPI population. So we had a lot of AAPI's phone banking, even going down and canvassing in Atlanta, and that Stacey Abrams lost by a very small percentage as a Democrat. So even if we live in Maryland, we can have an impact in other parts. And I think Dr. Karki said you have large populations of Bhutanese in Pittsburgh and Ohio.
Right.
And Pennsylvania is a swing state. Ohio's a swing state. Michigan's a swing state. Michigan's got a large population of Muslims, the highest population of Muslims outside of the Middle East. So again, and I think Democrats lost Michigan by 10,000 votes. So if we galvanize properly and make that 30% vote rate to a 60% vote rate, we are the margin of difference for 2020. And that's how we make a difference. Because now people in your community are talking about TPS. If Hillary Clinton had been elected, this wouldn't be an issue. Right. And not only for you, but for people from El Salvador, And so that's the other thing that we need to do a better job of, I think, is also not only a coalition between Asian Americans, but a coalition between Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans, okay, or other people of color, because we're having the same issues. Now, when Donald Trump talks about building a wall at the border, that doesn't affect the Asian American community, but it's an image of anti-immigration. And it's not just a wall at the border, but it's it's really a electronic wall in some sense, right, to have fewer immigrants in the country. And one of the things we're also seeing is he is slowing down the process everywhere for legal immigration, okay? So it takes much longer to get legal immigration, and there are fewer applications. Even naturalization rates have increased to over 2 years in many locations, or they're harassing people when they're applying for naturalization.
For the TPS people, what was the voice from AAPI?
Well, it's the congressional voice at that time. And unfortunately, or fortunately, there's not much we can do besides take it through the courts, okay? But I talked about that earlier. If we have a Republican president that stacks the courts in his favor, well, then the judges won't be able to help us. So the only help that we can do really is to vote those out of office. It's similar to what happened with the Muslim ban right after Trump went into office. Luckily, at that time, we had a Supreme Court and lower courts that overturned his Muslim ban. But what he would do is continue to tweak it until he could get what he wants. Okay. And it's also, he's sending out a signal or a message. If you're in Nepal right now and you're hearing all this issues and problems from your relatives in the United States, you're saying, you know what, maybe I don't go there. And so because he's sending out this, it's his marketing. We know Donald Trump is a great marketer, so he's marketing, this country is not open for you.
It's already changing. Number of students from Arab countries, Asian countries who come has gone down. The same way, people who are already here, the number of people who registered voting is going down because they feel scared. And people who are already registered, they don't go to vote also, they feel scared. So by the psychological toning, he's scaring people not to go to vote. The reason is he knows that this section votes against him. So in other words, by someone not voting against you, it's almost like getting one more vote for him.
Yes.
So he's trying to win that way. By doing that one, he's trying to load all the judgeships, almost like 1,500 judges he already appointed. Now if he wins the election, he can appoint and there may be 2,000 judges, different levels. Then he may be able to appoint 2 more justices to the Supreme Court, and they are for life. And he's choosing deliberately young people. He's not choosing 60, 70, he's choosing 40, 50. That means they are going to stay there for 30 years. And not only Roe versus Wade will change, a lot of Voting Registration Act, all the changes, and these are going to have a big impact on us.
And these are lifetime appointments, not just at the Supreme Court, but at the
Exactly.
circuit and district court levels. And that's the problem. So that's why I said they're going to be there for 20, 30, 40 years, depending on their age, which will affect the next 2 generations.
What is the responsibility to our country back in Nepal, back in India? We are already here. Isn't there any responsibility to our, like we are involved in politics here? We have some responsibilities to this country, to those countries, right? How do you think?
The best thing we can do, of course, there's a responsibility for those in our own countries or former countries. But I think the best thing we can do is become ambassadors from those countries to the United States, and the way Dr. Karki was talking about with trade. I mean, the 21st century is the century of Asia, for trade to Asia and economic growth. The demographics of Europe show that Europe is dying, okay? It's slowing, and they had their time. The demographics for Asia is a very young population with dynamic growth. And if our country wants to tie itself to Asia, then we need to be the ambassadors and be between the 2 countries and provide that economic trade and relationships between Asian countries and the United States. So we really need, but the biggest thing we can do is be the ambassadors.
For the country?
For the country, yes.
Okay. So, do you have anything for that?
No, not much. I think the reason is just like he said that one.
Because we born there, we raised there, we have some responsibility there.
What we do here, like to example, if we're doing very good here, in business, everything, when the people, dignitaries come from Nepal, come here, they listen to you more. If you are prosperous, if you are doing good, if you are successful, they listen to you. But if you are very poor, then nobody listens to you. So by being very active, by being prosperous, by making your community prosperous, they will say, this man is doing something, let me listen to your advice. And that's the best thing you can do is make them see what to do so that they will go back and do it.
Yes.
So maybe last question, what is the beauty of America?
The beauty of America.
Because we are working here, we have children here, and we are doing all the social work, politics.
I think the beauty of America is that, when you come to the United States, you're an American, okay? You may be an Indian American, Nepalese American, Chinese, but you're an American at its core. And what it means to be an American is just endless opportunity. If you want to work hard, you can get the right education. The opportunity is almost limitless for people in this country, which many of us may not have back in our country. And that's what we're fighting for as a That's what the Democrats are about, is maintaining that core belief of being an American with opportunity for all and the endless opportunities through education, entrepreneurship, etc.
You?
The same thing, beauty of this place is, this is a country where we are sitting down here right now and thinking of what we can do that one. Look at what Harry did. Coming from somewhere, now he won the election. He was in public. Now he opened the door for us. Right now, because I'm here in APIs, he's the one who brought me in, right? That's the advantage. And the same thing, just like he opened the door for us, we can open the door for a lot of us. And there are a lot of people, very intelligent, very bright, just waiting for the opportunity so that the doors will open for them so that they can get into. So this is the country where that's has been done. Look at all the billionaires. More than half of the billionaires are immigrants. So these came here, there was the opportunity. And so that's what happened. That's what AAPI also is the one is. These are the people with great ideas. These are the people with hard work. And these are the people who bring industries, who bring employment. Look at all the big billionaires, all the modern tech companies. All of them are led by the immigrants. Okay. So it's in the interest of this country and it's in the interest of ours.
There's one statistic that I always bring up. 40% of Fortune 500 companies, which are the biggest 500 companies in the United States, 40% were started by immigrants or children of immigrants, okay? So the economic engine of this country really is immigration and immigrants because of the energy they bring in, and they're risk takers. If you leave your country and come to the United States, you're a big risk taker. And you come in and you start a company and you create jobs.
So AAPI would be the milestone for our future generation.
It will be gate opener.
Yes.
Good
It will be
opener.
gate opener.
That's what we're doing, opening opportunities
right
for the
now
next
we're-
generation and the current generations, yes.
Okay.
And it's hard work. I mean,
Yeah,
in many
exactly,
sense, it's hard work. It's not going to be happening, within a week or a month. It's
It takes
slow
time.
progress. It takes time. But I think when we look back on it 20 years from now, you're going to say, wow,
It changes.
it changes.
When I first came here, there was not a single Asian in the Congress. There was not even a single female senator in the Congress. Now look at it. So
Yes.
it's not what we want it to be, but look at from 0 to how many? 20,
over
in
20.
the Congress now. How many female senators? I think 30 is in the senators, I think.
Yes.
That's a big change. At one time, there's only the white males domain. Now it has opened. So it, over time, it changes, but we just got to keep pushing on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Devang, do you have any short message for Marylanders, as a AAPI chair?
Maryland Nepalese.
Maryland Nepalese.
All
I
immigrants.
think for Maryland Nepalese,
yeah,
you
we-
have a wonderful role model in Delegate Harry Bhandari. And what he's done for the community is amazing. And I would continue to support him. But one way you can support him is run for office yourself. And get the children involved, have them and join commissions and boards. And that will really sow the seeds for the next generation, right? We want to see the 5th,
Right.
6th, 7th, 8th Nepalese American, where we're not even calling them Nepalese American because it's commonplace.
Exactly.
And that's what we want to do. And you support him by naturalizing, registering, and voting.
Right?
Yeah, same thing.
From you?
We'll do, I think I would exactly I echo his sentiment. That I started working, I managed his campaign, 14
Right.
campaign,
Yes.
I managed it. And 18 campaign, I gave him my house as his office, everything. I'm his biggest
Supporter,
supporter.
yeah.
Okay.
So from that perspective, and what it has done also, it has started being regions.
Right.
Now people are being energized, and once you see that one, we'll have much more activities in the public domain. From that perspective, I think we may do some voter registration right here. I'll talk to Kumar. We may do a couple of voter registration right here. Like he said, even the voting booth, I'll talk to them. Because the reason is, we got to bring these, once we have these open things, then we can take it to the people. If you ask people to come, sometimes they don't come. But if you can take those things to the people, then they'll come. So we got to make it easy and more convenient for them to be much more active in the public domains because it's in their interest. And I think once they see that one, it will start moving. It will start moving.
Okay. I don't have any question.
And thank you for hard work.
Mr. Devang and Mr. Karki,
Okay.
I really enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
It was
for
a
your
pleasure
time
to be on your
and
program.
insight.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.